Welcome back for another video. And let's get straight into this week's experts video. I'm starting with a look at who's the #1 ranked expert. It's really close to the top. Alex Williams is 1,800th in the world after scoring 52 points last week, which was actually a small red arrow as well. The average score in the experts league was 58 points. Well done if you managed to beat them. There's 12 experts sitting in the top 10k currently. Like so many of us, Alex was really unlucky being on the receiving end of both Mateta and Cunha's red flags, which has added to the difficulty of next game week. Shout out to Anders, who got the biggest score. Season defining game week for him. He got 96 points and that took him up to 7.5k overall. So what are they all doing this week? 66% are rolling the transfer, 31% making one move, 2% making two transfer, and 1 is making 3 transfers. If you can with your team, rolling is the sensible play this week. There's really no margin for error in Gameweek 29 if you're not free hitting. Like, every transfer counts to maximise your points in the blank, especially if you've only got 11 players maximum that actually will have a fixture on. For example, I'll have exactly 11 players that won't blank, the bench all blanking, and therefore making transfers directly into the blank basically reduces your risk, as opposed to making a transfer or two this week and then something goes wrong. All these little macro decisions over the season do add up and they can make a huge difference to your total score. It is a skill that's quite hard to quantify though. Like, do I sacrifice some potential gains this week to potentially gain in future weeks and give myself more flexibility? However, obviously it's understandable if you've got the likes of Mateta, Cunha, Hall, Gordon, who are all out this week. All out for the entire remainder of the season as well, in fact. So, which players are they buying and selling? This actually surprised me a bit. The most bought player is Marmoush. Now, admittedly, I've failed to talk about him much in this week's videos so far, but I have seen your comments about him. 7.2 mil, 9.2% owned. He's got Forest away, Brighton home and Leicester home, so nice fixtures as well overall. He makes sense as well if you can't get to Haaland, given he's like half the price. Again, peak FPL, the only game week that he's returned in was also the only game week where he had negative net transfers in, and of course that was the hat-trick against Newcastle a few weeks ago. It's not often you see hat-tricks, let alone against a top team like Newcastle, so we know what a huge talent he is. 15 goals, 10 assists and 17 games for Frankfurt before joining in the January window. So yeah, the potential is undeniably there, and again, if you can't get to Haaland in your team, then he makes sense as a route into their attack. Brighton home is nice in 29, but especially that Leicester home fixture coming out of the blank. If Haaland is reachable for you, then he's worth it instead though. So Cunha's the most sold player, 18% have got rid. Really stupid straight red card for violent conduct in the FA Cup. So that's 3 matches out, meaning he's going to miss Gameweek 29. And further to that, the FA have now charged him, as it's the second incident this season as well, so it could end up being a longer suspension. And Newcastle also announced this week that Hall's out for the remainder of the season with a foot injury. 5% are selling him. It's a massive shame given how great he's been. Plus we've got those Newcastle double game weeks not far away. And Dai, Ahmad, Dorgu also being heavily sold, all red flagged as well. So Wood is the second top transfer in. That Cunha and Mateta situation is really awkward timing, because where do you even go? Like, Marmoush is still finding his feet, Wood's got Man City next, 2% are buying Beto, who in fairness he's in amazing form recently. Last match aside, where he did miss a few big chances, he's got Wolves and West Ham his next 2 games. The only catch with Beto is Gameweek 30 onwards, the fixtures are awful there, you don't really want to play him if you can help it. They're away at Anfield in Gameweek 30. Though he did score against Liverpool at Goodison Park in fairness. 2% are going for Strand Larsen, who could be on penalties now, and he should get much better minutes in Cunha's absence. Off the back of the FA Cup results and the draw, I've added a slide this week looking at the landscape for the rest of the season, everything you need to know here. So the graphic on the right is from FPL Spaceman. He's actually part of the Expert series, and he's basically put all the teams on the left hand side, and then in the columns it's the weeks where there can be either a blank or a double game week and the percentage likelihood by each team. So blank game week 29 and double game week 32 is 100% there, that's locked in. Villa, Palace, Liverpool and Newcastle won't play in game week 29, and we know that Palace and Newcastle will definitely double in game week 32, that's been announced. So we can predict what's going to happen in Game Week 33 using the bookmakers' odds of who will progress in the FA Cup. So my graphic on the left hand side shows the actual double Game Week 33 fixtures and the percentage likelihoods that we see those double game weeks. And the last thing to mention before we take a proper look at this is top left I've put there's about a 50% chance we know double Game Week 33 and blank Game Week 34 before the Game Week 30 deadline, and about a 90% chance we know before the Game Week 31 deadline. We've had lots of Friday announcements this season, so we're going to have to think on our feet if that drops in one of those weeks, which it almost certainly will. Anyway, this is noteworthy because there's a lot of discussion about wildcarding immediately after the blank Gameweek 29 when the deadline passes. However, that doesn't work if you don't know the doubles and blanks. So yeah, you need to keep your team flexible and pick players that will get you through Gameweek 30 as well if need be. Flexibility is key there. Bournemouth and Man City assets are perfect for this because they've got some nice home fixtures in both Gameweek 29 and Gameweek 30. So I'll be buying Haaland and Vardy next week, for example, and I've got Semenyo and Kluivert already. So anyway, Villa and Man City have got the best odds of doubling in Gameweek 33 with 93%, and then Arsenal Palace with 48%. Now that would mean back-to-back doubles for Palace if it happens. That could be a nice opportunity for the assistant manager if he's still got it. Palace need to beat Fulham in their FA Cup match for that to happen. Brighton and West Ham next likeliest, 38%, and then Fulham and Southampton. Bournemouth and Man United about 29% chance. It is possible that the blanks in Gameweek 34 just move a few days backwards to the midweek if the teams concerned don't have European commitments then, which is why the double Gameweek 33 odds are slightly lower than the blank Gameweek 34 odds. A Gameweek 34 blank does not guarantee a Gameweek 33 double, but it is likely. There's a very small chance of a double Gameweek 35 for some teams, but nothing higher than 12% there. And Gameweek 36 could be a small double as well. Bournemouth and Man City have got the highest odds there. It's going to be an interesting final 10 game weeks, especially if Man City get two doubles, as you're going to want to have Haaland really. He's not been in many of our teams recently, but you may not want to lose Salah, so our budgets are going to be stretched in our teams. Anyway, more analysis on the blanks, the doubles and chip strategy to come in the next few weeks, so make sure you're subscribed. Moving on to Gameweek 28 captaincy next, and you're probably not surprised to hear it's very one-sided this week. It's Salah 96%, Palmer just 4%. But what's really interesting is the projections have got them genuinely neck and neck. FPL Review's got Palmer on 9.2 points and Salah 9.1. So if you're chasing maximum upside and you're willing to play in a really volatile manner, then Palmer's absolutely viable for captaincy home to Leicester. One of the hardest skills in FPL, and I guess one of the biggest edges out there still, is predicting minutes. Now, I guess Salah in fairness could haul quite easily even if he only gets 60 minutes, but the review projections are dead even here based on Salah getting 85 minutes and Palmer 91. So of course Liverpool got the second leg in the Champions League next week, so if you're predicting for example 60 minutes for Salah, then that becomes a notable gap as Salah would drop to 6.5 points then. It's high risk, high reward though, and in honesty stats and data kind of go out the window when Salah's having a generational season. The anytime goal scorer odds have got them very close as well. Salah 51.5% chance of scoring, Palmer 48.5%. Who are you going with for captain? Salah, Palmer or someone else? On to the experts team for Gameweek 28 next. A few changes to the team this week. Pickford remains in goal. It's Trent, Gabriel and Munoz in defence. Palmer and Bumo, Salah, Dango and Kluivert in midfield. Isak and Wissa up front. And on the bench, Fabianski, Robinson, Wood and Mikalenko. Just on Isak, he's been spotted in training, so it looks like he'll be fine for next game week. Hopefully he starts. Of course they've got the League Cup coming up as well. So Munoz, Wissa and Wood all join the team in place of Hall, Cunha and João Pedro. Only 30% were actually buying Munoz. It's the mass Hall sales that have basically caused the two to swap places. And Munoz of course blanks in Gameweek 29. But if you're free hitting that week, then of course you're free to buy whoever you want now. And Palace are great because it's Ipswich home this week and it's Southampton away after the blank. Amazing looking team this week. Salah captain, Palmer vice in the experts team. Trent, Munoz, Salah and Hall are the four players that have a blank in 29. Given the huge amount of rolled transfers lately, let's see how much the team gets a shake-up next week and how they afford Haaland, and whether it's Palmer or Salah that makes way. It's something to strongly think about if you weren't considering it before. Next up, let's have a look at some final thoughts and tips from the experts. Here's what they sent in for us. Tom Hewitt says, saving transfers for Gameweek 29, I hopefully have 3. I need to get rid of Hall and then 2 of Rodgers, Isak, Watkins and Trent. Hopefully no more carnage of injuries this week as well. Andrew Debenham says, after having 8 Nori earlier in the season, I said to myself to never go back and buy him again. Now in Gameweek 28, welcome to the team Ryan 8 Nori. Hey FPL says, by far the superior captain choice this week is redacted as opposed to redacted. Information has been redacted by request of Chamberlain and Jacobs Solicitors LLP. Love that one. You're going to either get that one or not have a clue what he's talking about. Forza Inter says, anyone besides me lucky enough to own Hall, Gordon and Cunha? If so, please give me some sound advice as to what you do with all 3 of them between this week and next, and I'll gladly confer upon my experts label. Note, terms and conditions may apply. Jack, or House of Dragazin, reflects on a change of strategy this season. He says, I plan to free hit in 29 and wildcard in 30 or 31. In previous years, I'd find someone to transfer just to use the transfers up, but as transfers roll over, even through wildcards, I'm going to try and hold and build back up to 5. I would do a late change if there's some seismic injury news, but otherwise I'm rolling into the free hit next week. Gary Smith says, I'm still basking in the glory of having won the FPL Focal Experts League Manager of the Month for February. There were 250 creme de la creme managers in there to beat. I'm almost 60 years old and it clearly ranks as one of the greatest achievements of my life. Although Glasner can have a modicum of credit, might get my first tattoo. So no need whatsoever to change a winning squad with no injuries for Gameweek 28. In fact, I don't make any changes until Gameweek 29, and then as few as possible in advance of finally nailing down chip tactics in Gameweek 31 onwards. I'll see the merits of wildcarding, free hitting and bench boosting any of the weeks after that. I'm just glad triple captain and assistant manager have been played. My poor brain couldn't cope with any more. Massive shout out to all the experts for getting their responses in every week. Hit like if this was helpful for your team. See you soon for the next one.